How's it going? I don't remember what I was watching last night, but it reminded me of when I was a bartender. And one of the most important skills as a bartender is being able to cut somebody off. All right, it's a thing. And then I remembered a story or an event, that took place with this guy. His name was Leon, big giant biker dude up in Pennsylvania. The summer of '92, I was working at this biker bar, and then I thought to myself, well, that was a pretty amazing summer, like an unbelievable summer. I've had weekends that if I told you what happened, you wouldn't believe me. but so I'm going to try to tell you how that summer went down and include some everything I can think of off the top of my head right now because a lot of it was pretty entertaining, and I want to get to the Leon part of it. So in 1992, some things were going down where I was living at the Jersey Shore, and I decided I should, amspray for my own health. People were just disappearing. And my dad was living up in the Poconos in a little town called Canadensis. At that time, everything was open there. It's crazy. It was such a wild, fun time with a lot of little bars and people all over the place. And it was '92, so technically it's like the '80s happened, but it was still all that music and the clothes and all that. And I bring that up because there's that movie, Hot Tub Time Machine. That's such a great flick. It's the exact same sort of vibe, exactly. And I went back home to Jersey a few years ago, and I went up to Canadensis to work on a house for a celebrity chef guy at New York City, and it was right down the road from this bar I used to work at. The place was called Sunny E's, summer of 1992, and everything was boarded up. Nothing is around anymore. There a lot of the resorts up there. This is the Pocono Mountains, Penn Hills, all this stuff. People go up there for their honeymoons. The hot tub shaped like hearts, all that sort of thing. Those places were all open in the summer of '92. If you go up there now, they're literally burnt out. Places caught on fire, things are closed down. There's nothing happening there. It's very reminiscent of Hot Tub Time Machine, where they go back thinking they're going to relive their youth, and everything's all dilapidated. And it's the same sort of atmosphere. It's pretty wild. Anyhow, my dad used to shoot a lot of pool. He was the captain of his pool team up there, and he brought me down to this bar, and I got a gig as a bartender there. And that was a wild place to work. And then right up the hill was this other place. It was a restaurant bar, very upscale. It was called the Forks. The Forks is still there. It's still open. It's still run by the same couple. Well, I think the husband has passed. When I was home a few years ago, I went in and talked to his wife. She didn't remember me at first, but then she did. It's kind of funny. I actually walked in the freezer one time, and she was giving him a blowjob in the freezer. I was like, oh, hey, sorry, I guess I'll just, get out of here. There might be a little swearing and some, adult terms in this video. I hope you can handle it. And yeah, she told me at that time he was sick with cancer. So, Rick, nice dude. I mean, he was a nice guy, kind of, but he was, fooling around with the help and all kind. That guy was wild, man. What a personality. Anyhow, working at Sunny E's was a trip. That was one of the local bars. There was a couple of them right next around each other, and there was this group of guys who used to come in there. This motorcycle gang. I'm a little distracted because I can hear a helicopter coming, and it always bums me out. It's every time I want to do something. It's we get this noise pollution thing here, but I guess you guys are used to it by now. I'll try to ignore it. As I was saying, I got this gig at this bar, and I mean, I always looked younger than I am. Like you'd never guess I was 73 just by looking at me right now. But back then, being clean shaven and everything else, it was a weird situation because the regulars that came in that place, the dudes, they were kind of jealous of me because I was attracting the girls and all that. And it was this interesting, large place that had pool tables in a back corner and a boomerang shaped bar. I don't know how to really get into this but I guess it'll start with the motorcycle guys. To me, it was humorous to see these guys because They reminded me of the Black Widows from Pacoima. If you know the movie, the Clint Eastwood flick, Any Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can, that's what they were. That's exactly what they were. It was a mismatched conglomeration of bikes, rice burners, and Harleys, and they were all not nice looking bikes necessarily, and the guys were just funny, man. A lot of them were, I think they were all probably Vietnam vets. They had their colors, their black leather vests with no shirts, a lot of them, with, the guys been in and out of prison. They had their Indian ink tattoos and missing teeth, and the thing was they took themselves seriously. Like I've always avoided that thing, especially the three patch club thing, because these guys invent their own bullshit and then they believe it. They take it seriously. It's freaking crazy, and they're a gang, you know. So if you mess with one, you're messing with all of them. It's a bad situation. I'll tell you, one of the best bonding moments ever with my father. This is a good man story for you. Was these guys were coming in, and like I said, they were kind of jealous of me, and for whatever reason, I'm not saying I'm all that. I don't think I'm anything special. Just let's get that out of the way. But it was my first Saturday night working there. And I came in, and these guys were already there at the end of the boomerang-shaped bar, and they're all shooting pool. And they're giving me a lot of shit and really trying to provoke me. And a couple hours into it, it was already like, what am I going to do with this? It was getting into my head. And my dad comes in, and he could sense right away something's wrong. I got a bunch of stories about my dad where he could just pick up on something was wrong. You'll probably hear a lot of them if you keep watching the channel. So he says, what's the problem? I said, Dad, I'd like it if you're not here tonight. Maybe go up the street to this other joint. And he goes, what's the problem? I said, it's a little tough here right now. Just calm down, relax. And more people started coming in the bar. So I had to go down the other end of the boomerang there and serve all these drinks. And when I look over, my dad's shooting pool with these guys. Okay, I come back, a couple drinks. I'm starting to get busy. It's probably after 8 o'clock now, around 9 o'clock. And I go out to the other end of the bar, and I didn't even notice, but all the bikers had shuffled out. I was getting so busy. And every single one of them had left me a decent tip, like $5 or more. There was a bunch of these guys, like 10 of these guys in there. And my dad just sitting at the bar, totally calm, sipping his beer. What happened? What's going on? He goes, he says, you were right. I was shooting pool with them, and I was listening to them, and they were talking about you. And their plan was to razz you and screw with you all night and then leave, towards the end of the night, but wait for you to close up the bar. And then they were going to jump you, beat you up, take your money. And so this is my dad telling me the story. So he says to them, he says, you're talking about the guy behind the bar? And they said, yeah. And he goes, that's not a good idea. You don't want to screw with that guy. And they said, why? He goes, because he'll kill one of you. And they said, well, how do you know? He goes, that's my son. They had so much respect for my dad. And once they knew that, that was all over. And every single one of these guys was like my best friend. And if we had any trouble in that bar, ever, those guys were there to take care of it. Because we didn't have a bouncer. It was just me. I had a, stick behind the bar. I really thought I was going to have to crack one of those guys in the head with that thing. It was just this crazy moment, where everything kind of shifted for me in a positive way at that joint. The jukebox killed me, man. It was nothing but country and western music. And this young guy would come in every week or so, clean out the change and everything. And every once in a while he would arrange the records. I said, dude, for God, please, just bring me one thing that I can listen to. And I got him to bring me, the Violent Femmes. One of the Violent Femmes records. It might have been the Greatest Hits or something. And there were nights where I would play that 5-6 times in a night just for my own sanity, And it was funny because all those guys actually liked that music. And it led to, like, towards the end of the summer, he ended up putting more of that sort of stuff in there, and everybody dug on it. I got him to get the Clash on there and a lot of good, ballsy stuff. It was a fun place to work. And all these young people that worked the resorts around there were coming in. And a lot of them were these regulars. There was this guy, Hurley, that worked there. And he was this really nice guy. He was gay, not that he wasn't putting that out at that time. He had this one kooky eyeball, you know. He was a little oddball guy, and he lived like in the attic of this structure. Years later, when I got on Facebook, he reached out to me, and he was full blown out of the closet, man. Leather stuff and everything. It's really wild. But he was a super sweetheart of a dude. Uh, yeah, and then I started working up at the restaurant bar, which was a whole other class of people. Not that I'm judging, I'm just saying different sorts of people were up there and there was a theater there where they did summer stock theater. So all these actors from TV shows that you watched in the 70s and 80s were there, like Gary Sandy from WKRP in Cincinnati, Loretta Swit from MASH, Ted Lange from The Love Boat, who I didn't not only met there, but I met here in LA when I got out here. And a lot of other actors I can't think of right now. They'd be sitting right at the bar. And they were telling me when I was in that joint, like, what are you doing here? You should go to LA. And I met this guy, Patrick Michler, who was a character actor, and he was doing Driving Miss Daisy. I think Ted Lange was in that one. And he and I got to be real chummy, and he gave me his number. He says, if you ever get to LA, give me a call. And I did, and that led to a whole bunch of wild stuff the first couple years I was here. But back to Pennsylvania. So it was just wild time, man. And this guy I wanted to mention, this guy, Leon, he was part of this biker gang, but he very rarely came in with those dudes. Matter of fact, I don't know if he ever did. But when he did come in, he always had the colors on. He always had the vest, no t-shirt, just the vest. Black curly hair, scruffy. I think he had kind of a beard on him. And he was giant. Like I'm saying, like 6'4". Big friggin' dude. And the first time he goes in there, he doesn't want to pay for his beer. And he's acting as if that's how it always is with him. No, dude, you're paying for your beer. I was not intimidated by him. And the fact that I wasn't intimidated by him turned a gear in his mind with me. And he just really liked me. I think I was probably the first guy in his life that stood up to him. Which is interesting. And keep in mind, I guess I was probably 25 at this time. So I had lived a pretty good life, pretty wild, done a lot of wild stuff, and I understood big dudes by that time. I had become friends with them when I was in the Marine Corps, and just a segue here. It's an interesting thing with big dudes. You can't help the body that you're born into, man. You know, and a lot of big guys, there's certain things that happen to them in their life that are pressed upon them, right? Just because of their size. They get picked out to do certain things or take charge or whatever, but they might not have developed themselves to be able to actually handle the stuff that people are putting upon them. And in a lot of ways, when it comes to like physical things, like physical confrontations, a lot of those guys don't learn how to actually take care of themselves that well because they never have to, because they're so intimidating size-wise where people just don't push them. So I found, and I've done this a lot, I've stood up to a lot of big dudes, and I've actually had some fights with some of the bigger guys, which is scary for me, but I've always come out on top of it because I hurt them quickly and get it over with. Solar plexus is a real thing, you know. But it is hard to hurt a big guy, especially if you try to like hit him in the head or something. But just the fact that you stand up to them always makes them think. So Leon liked me, and he started coming in all the time. And one day he comes in during the daytime, and this gets to the beginning of the video, what I was talking about. He comes in, and I see him. And I could tell something's off because there's just something wrong with his gait, you know, like how he's walking. And he starts getting closer to the bar, and he's got to be 4 or 5 feet from me, but I can smell him. More than the natural, normal BO smell. I could just smell the booze just oozing out of his pores. And even before he can order the drink, I said, Leon, I'm not serving you. Which didn't go so well. Leon's like, oh, you know, trying to give me some shit. I said, Leon, I don't care. You know who you're talking to here. I'm not serving you. He says, well, will you sell me a 12-pack? I said, I'll sell you a 12-pack, but you got to go. I said, all right. Sold him the 12-pack. And it's the daytime. This was a day shift. It was a weekday. as I recall. And now I don't recall. I wanted to say that it was the local news. It seems like it was like there was a local news channel, but it also could have just been somebody coming into the bar. It's been a long time, and I just thought of another story from this place. But all I know is the next thing we know is that there's a shootout at Leon's house with the police department, and he's got his wife or girlfriend in the house, and the scenario is she's like a hostage, and he literally has a shootout with the police. I don't know what the outcome of it was. I don't remember. I think nobody was hurt, but Leon went to prison for that. So that kind of sucked because he was actually a pretty nice guy. But I just thought of this other thing that happened one night. This was a super busy night at the bar, Sunny Eves, and you know all the regulars. But it was a weeknight, so it wasn't one of the, like on the weekends, a lot of other people would come up there for all the resorts, right? But the weeknights were pretty busy too. And this guy comes in one night, this old guy, and he sits down at the bar, and he gets a beer or something, and then this black guy comes in, which is very rare. As a matter of fact, I don't think I saw anybody of color in that bar up until that point, that evening. Never seen any of these guys before. And at this point, I know all the regulars, and they're all there. And the black guy sees this older white dude, and he starts treating him like he is somebody. Like, hey, aren't you so-and-so? And the white guy's like trying to play this off. I gotta show you something here. Hang on a second. Actually, let me pause this because you'll get a kick out of this. Okay, I think we're rolling here. Sorry, not pro. I know. This is the guy. So this is such a funny story to me. So this guy, these two guys are talking, but they're putting on an act. It's a show. The guy see through immediately. And I just walk up to him and I just cut him off. I said, look, what's the scam here? What's this spiel, this whole act you guys are putting on? What's going on? And the old guy is still trying to play it. But he realizes they thought they walked into some, backwoods bar with a bunch of country bumpkins in it that don't know any better. And they're trying to pull this scam. But I'm street smart. I automatically pick up on this. And the guy realizes it, we start, and I laugh at him like, come on, you guys are doing a whole big thing. What do you want? What is the scam? What are you selling? And then he tells me, so he's a writer and he's written this book and he's literally selling them out of the trunk of his car. I mean, I had to buy the book so that I remembered the story, and he wrote an inscription in here for me. To Mike, a man with great personality and sense of humor. Good luck and happy reading. Albert Davis. 7/23/92. And all it is a book of quips, man. I mean, just a bunch of stuff that he wrote that he thinks is hysterical. Number 589. If I decide that I don't need something, it no longer exists. Number 590. The strong never have to fight for peace. Only the weak do that. Okay. 599. Dishonest people can always get to work. Evil has its own employment bureau. I know this guy, just everything he ever thought in his life, he jotted down in a notebook or something, and then he wrote this book with sketches, by the way. And this guy makes a living with his partner, this black guy, which was a lot younger than him, and that's just what they do. They go into bars, they drink with people, and sell his book. What a crazy way to live! I mean, there's a story there, man. That's a movie in itself, right? Matter of fact, I said, look, you have entertained me. I want to buy you a drink. What do you want? He said, I want some apricot schnapps. So I'm going to tell you something. That apricot schnapps had been sitting there untouched by me the entire time I was there. And, I mean, there was fruit flies in it. And I didn't say anything to him. I poured him the drink, and the screen was gone, which is how the fruit flies got in it. And several of those fruit flies got in that shot, and he drank them. So he got himself some extra protein for nothing. But, yeah, that was, that was just, one night in that bar. And it was like that every night. There was some kind of crazy thing always going on. And fights were breaking out, and you'd have to crack somebody in the head every once in a while. And there was women coming in. There was this girl. It's funny. There was a woman up there, and I wish I could remember her name because she was a real sweetheart. She was beautiful. She looked like she had just walked out of like a White Snake music video. Blonde, curly hair, perfect figure, and she was always real sweet with me. But she always came in with this one dude, and he was like the stud of the mountain. You could just tell. Guy was pretty jacked, good looking dude, well groomed with a tight beard and whatnot. And I remember one time during the day, she had come in with him, and the guys were talking to me, and I was like, man, if she wasn't married, and they're like, oh, she's not married. As soon as I heard that, I was like, I started talking to her, and of course, as things will happen, they happen. But at the same time, I had met this other girl. She had come in at the other place, who I'm still friends with today, Angela, love her. We ended up having this crazy thing, and it still goes on today. I mean, not like that, but it's amazing. She was a college graduate and everything, and she started working as a waitress at the restaurant bar. And I remember this crazy decision I had to make in my mind, like which one do I make? Do I decide to stick with and make more serious? And I chose Angela, and that turned into like decades of like this stuff that has gone on, and she's an awesome human being. But yeah, it was wild, man. There was at the end there. I'm probably going to regret making this video too short because there's too many stories that are bumping into my brain right now. I can't remember them all, but I'll tell you at the end. So it was September of '92. I was going to come out here, and I was a few weeks away from doing that, and this woman had called that I knew from down the shore. When I worked at the Jersey Shore, I was a bartender and a DJ and did all that stuff down there. And there was this, out of many of the people I met while I was doing that gig, there was this one lady, I don't remember her name. She was much older. She was in her 50s. I was 25, but she was gorgeous, like just smoking hot, incredible hard body. That was the term we used to use back in the day, hard body, like super fit. And I told her I was leaving. She wanted to come up, and she wanted to go camping, hiking and camping. And she came up one night. This is so crazy. She came to the bar to meet me, and she was so good looking. It was screwing up the bar, and the bikers were in there. And she was just drawing so much attention from them. I couldn't even do my job because I was trying to, keep her from getting too much harassment. So I closed the bar early that night, and it was funny because we ended up getting it on the pool table. So it was one of those things. But what I didn't know was somebody had come around and kind of spied in on us through the windows and reported that to the owner of the bar. And when I came to work the next time, which was like a day or two later, the boss was like, he let me go, and that was the end of it. So I ended up missing a couple shifts there before driving across the country out here to California. Was it worth it? It was worth it. Actually, that was the woman that I did the hike with when I had my Bigfoot experience, which is a true story, and it's a crazy story. I will put a link to that underneath this video for you guys. But anyhow, that all started from Leon, remembering having to cut Leon off from, I remember attending bar at the Jersey Shore. There were some times where I had to cut some people off. And one night, it was a pregnant lady. She wasn't just pregnant. She looked like she was ready to drop any second. She was huge. And she came, I think she had come from another bar. There's many bars inside this nightclub. She came up to my bar and asked for a drink, and I looked at her and said, I'm not going to serve you. And she started putting up a stink, and I told her, I said, I'm just not comfortable giving you alcohol in the state that you're in. And though it was a woman that ran the joint, and her dad, I'm not going to get into who these people were. I can't get into that right now. You guys know the stories if you watched my videos before, but she started giving me grief, and I said, Michelle, listen, she doesn't have to drink at my bar. if you're okay with giving her alcohol in the state that she's in, then I want, just let her drink at the other bar over there. I'm just not comfortable with it. And I thought I might lose my job for that, but I didn't. She respected the fact that I had principles that I stood by. But yeah, I don't know. That summer was wild, man. The people I met there and the things that I did, and it was insane. It was a good time. And that, again, with the reference to the Hot Tub Time Machine movie, the first time I watched that, this sounds ridiculous. Sounds ridiculous. But I watched that film and I laughed my ass off. But at the end, I was kind of weeping a little, like, because it was like I felt sad because it touched on a moment in time that many of us lived through. It's so well done, like the music, the clothes, everything. When times were good and there wasn't all this BS going on and everything else, man. So anyhow, hope you enjoyed this. As I was saying a moment ago, it was just that memory of not serving somebody and remembering this guy Leon, who was just burned into my brain. This this experience with this guy. There was many times he came in and we would have this crazy wild time. I think he tore the joint up one night too, where we all just stood back because he was such a big guy. Yeah, man, it's just too much, And we're talking decades ago. Decades ago. Anyhow, thanks for being here. Be good to one another. Have fun. Enjoy your life. Go out there and have some adventures yourself. Don't be afraid. Life is short. Every wild thing that you live through and do and experience influences who you are as a person and your perception of reality. And I think the more wild stuff that you do, the better you can see the world. And never be afraid to engage with people outside your bubble. You should have everything you think be challenged, and you should try to spend time with different cliques. I did that my whole life. I've hung out with super rich people. I've hung out with artists. I've hung out with bums on the street. I've hung out with hardcore criminals. All different types of people. If I have an opinion on a certain type of people or a group of people, it's going to be because I've immersed myself with that for some period of time. So it's coming from a real place of reference. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for being here. I just had to show you this. I actually still have the t-shirt from working in the joint. Sunny Eves, Canadensis, PA. As you guys know, I do these videos. They're all off the cuff. I just think, I'm going to do this right now, and I do it, but I don't think ahead of time. I've actually got pictures of some of the people from the bar that are, tucked in a box someplace. I'm not going to go dig all those out now, but I just thought you guys would get a kick out of that. And I actually still own a t-shirt, and I was tinier back then, I guess. Once again, have a great day. Thanks for being here. Come back again. Be good to one another.